Welcome back to Chicago Sports Update. This is Matt. Brandon is out tonight, spending some time with the family, and that's always a good thing. Otherwise, I guess you could say we've learned a few things about the Bears. When necessary, it seems like they can have a very good high-flying offense, as they beat the Eagles in the first preseason game. Jay Cutler was easily the best player in that game for the short amount of time that the number ones were out on the field. We learned a lot about Jimmy Clausen and Jordan Palmer, and Clausen, I think, does have the inside track right now against Palmer, and we'll certainly see. The second game is going on right now against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they flip-flop Clausen and Palmer so that Clausen can get some time with the number twos as opposed to Palmer, who started last week with the twos, and I'm sure we'll go from there. The second preseason game isn't the most important one. You let your starters go a little bit longer. You rotate the backup quarterbacks to see who really is your true number two if you already don't know. And let's see. You try to see and focus on all those little, I don't know, I don't want to say the mechanics. You want to see the different phases of the game play a bigger role, and try to see what you can learn on there. Otherwise, a couple of injuries happened this game. We don't know the seriousness to that extent. So Jordan Mills left with a foot injury in the first half, and Kyle Fuller, first-round pick, cornerback, certainly he left with an ankle injury. I believe it was his left ankle, so we shall find out in the hours to come as that. So please feel free to follow, well, I shouldn't say follow along me on Twitter, but follow those Bears beat reporters on Twitter. They do a very good job covering the team and getting you that information as soon as possible and as soon as it does break. Next game is probably going to be the most important game that we do see in the preseason. That's typically how it goes, at least what we hear from the Bears and how they operate. You see the starters play about a full half, and maybe give a little bit of a few wrinkles here and there into the pretty bland playbook that they run. You're still looking for execution. You're looking to see that can happen. You're looking to see that everyone knows the playbook, I'm sure, and on the other sides of the ball, that you're correcting the issues that were evident last year, specifically on the defensive side, that they can stop the offense and not be a last place defense. In fact, a historically poor defense. Special teams are a bit of a concern right now for the Bears. I don't know when the panic button really should be thrown out there for that or pressed for that, because there are a few things that are worrisome. Their long snapper, they're one of the longest tenured players in the league, in Patrick Manley. Their long snapper is out. He retired. You have a new punter, you have a new placeholder, and all of them need to be in sync. Traditionally, the Bears' special teams was very good. On the other side of the ball, on the punting and receiving side, return side, I guess is the best way to put it, right now you have Eric Weems as your number one, and we just don't know whether Eric Weems can fit that role. Certainly, you had a near Hall of Fame player in Devin Hester, and what he was able to do in his career with the Bears. Punchers punting away from him, kickers, kicking out of bounds or trying to not get to him, especially on kickoff. I know the Vikings are horrendously horrible when it came to their game planning and execution, specifically against Devin Hester, letting the Bears start at the 40-yard line oftentimes because of kick out of bounds on the sidelines on a kickoff. Just a disaster. Or out-kicking their coverage and unable to getting the Bears pinned deep and starting at the 20-yard line. But we'll see what happens going forward. I'm certainly going to hope to be paying a little bit more attention to the third game because I haven't been able to do so for the first two. But that's okay. It's kind of what I've garnered from just being out in the ether of Twitter and sports radio and the sort. Other than that, the Cubs prospects are the biggest draw right now in town. Javier Baez is certainly garnering Chuck Norris or Andrew Shaw levels of attention in his I don't know, the storyline. I don't want to say the storylines, but the expectation that he has, the early greatness that people are seeing from him, certainly it exceeds that of individuals like Felix PA or Corey Patterson. I know names that Cubs fans shudder to hear, considering the stories that were touted about those two individuals in previous years. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of an odd situation. I guess it's a very conducive situation for the Cubs, because you have a team with no pressure at this time. You see the potential of a turning corner. You have position players that are executing and very dynamic and fun to watch, especially some on the precipice of coming up to the big leagues that, like we were talking about last week. So next year, I certainly think, I don't know if expectations will be raised for next year, but I certainly think it will be a good learning experience for those prospects, depending on who breaks camp and who doesn't. Right now, I don't think Chris Bryant's best friend is his agent, Scott Boras. I don't particularly believe Theo Epstein has a very good relationship with some of these aggressive agents that are out there. I don't know what they're expecting to do. I certainly don't expect them to go out and sign him long term to a great money-friendly deal for the Cubs without him playing a single game. I really just don't think that's going to be the case. That being said, because, well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's what the Astros did to one of their prospects earlier this year. Before they even called him up, they made him sign an agreement where they own him for they buy out, I think, the first 2 years of his I know that buyout is arbitration time, and I don't know what would be his free agency time. I think maybe a year, maybe two. We'll see what happens there. But certainly he got paid. I don't know if that will be the case. Boras is very much a bet-on-yourself type player, set the ceiling as high as possible. And Chicago fans don't have to look much further than Joe Crede, third baseman for the Chicago White Sox, as far as the last time I think a GM had to interact with Scott Boras. Joe Crede was was one of the best third basemen of recent memory for the White Sox. Had some back problems, did not opt for surgery. He knew the recovery and what was out there for him as far as surgery was concerned, and he bet against that. And unfortunately, he lost. Long stints on the DL. I think that really encapsulated the 2007 season as far as injuries were concerned. And it hurt his career. It, in fact, could be considered his career-ending move. He bet on himself. That's a player's prerogative. Very, very disappointing to see, though. And I hate to see that happen. And it's very disappointing that did happen for someone who had such great potential and such consistency in a time where, oh boy, and since him, there was such a void. So we'll see what happens. I know that's such a long way off, and I'm sure the Cub fans don't want to hear about contract negotiations for a player that hasn't even had a single plate appearance in the major leagues. So we'll cross that bridge certainly when we get there. Flipping sides of town, the White Sox headed west, and it was, for the most part, a disastrous road trip. I believe they ended up going, 2 and, would that be 2 and 4? Not a very, very good road trip, to say the least. That spark that they had coming out of the All-Star break, gone, disintegrated, trending towards the low watermark of the season, 7.5 games below 500 at this point. And that's fine. I accept that. I'm all for getting a better draft pick at this stage in the game. Certainly hope, maybe they can find another great pitcher. Maybe they can find the next big position player. That would be really great, I think. So we'll see what happens there. They've had a bit of trouble, and I really hate the fact that they have so much trouble with outside problems. And what I mean by that is their interactions with the league and rules officials, it's really, really disappointing. And it's so, I don't know, fruitless. You don't look good. And I don't particularly like looking stupid or bad. There were a couple bad calls that happened due to the complete, I don't know, the cloudiness, the misunderstanding of the new no catcher contact at home plate rules that are out there. Ended up taking away a run for the White Sox, yet on a near mirror image play, the next day, the run was allowed to score. And this happened in in consecutive games in San Francisco. So the lack of consistency is very troubling, and I don't know what it is with the White Sox and how they end up getting involved in just flat-out stupid situations like this. They've had their problems with umpires. I don't particularly like that. And it comes from that can easily be pegged onto their announcing team. I appreciate and have appreciated Ken Harrelson for the overwhelming majority of his career. He's the only White Sox broadcaster that I grew up with on television. He's certainly an eccentric character. However, in this day and age, seemingly you can't be an eccentric character for such a grueling sport, for such a I don't want to say monotonous, but for such a day-to-day sport. You can't be that way. And I hate to say relic. He's just a fixture from another era. He certainly did fine in the 90s. He has not adjusted well, and he has not aged well as the game has aged into this new modern, I don't want to say, I guess, post-steroid, but sabermetric, Moneyball-esque world that we live in, baseball world that we live in. And it hasn't done well. It hasn't fared well this season in the broadcast. It's suffered. It has tremendously suffered. And I definitely think it's high time they find a born-bred, trained professional to call the game. Because it's a tremendous waste to have one of the smartest individuals in the entire sport sitting next to you and not being able to talk and being reduced to a sideshow. I don't want to call him a sideshow. I don't think a sideshow, is correct, simply because of his opinions, his knowledge of the game and how to play the game. That's frustrating. Their radio broadcast team, to me, is one of the worst in the sport. Sure, there are only 30 jobs out there, but you can't find anything better. You can't find anybody else that can do the job better. I love the White Sox organization. They are the number one team that I want to see win. I want to see White Sox World Series more than any other team in Chicago championships combined. The Blackhawks have been very nice. I definitely want to see another Bears Super Bowl. But this, the White Sox is where that is it for me. That is the be-all and end-all. The gap between number 1 and 2 is huge. And I hate to see the organization fall into ruin due to overextended loyalties and most certainly poor business decisions. I certainly believe in Rick Hahn and the job that he's doing running the team as a general manager. I appreciated Ken Williams, who's now been elevated to a president role for the organization, away from day-to-day general manager duties. And I appreciate chairman Jerry Reinsdorf for everything that he's done. I'm not asking him to sell the team. I'm not asking him to go away. I guess I'm asking him to let the business run as a business and let decisions be made that are best for business. I hate to sound like our other, I guess, our second show that we kind of do, second in